So it's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Paul Sindelar. Paul is a professor in the Department of Special Education, School Psychology, and Early Childhood Studies at the University of Florida. He also is the co-director of the $25 million OSEP-funded CEDAR Center, which stands for the Collaboration for Effective Education Development, Accountability, and Reform. And so you know, Paul taught students with severe disabilities in Champaign for one summer, lived in Illinois for several years, and got his master's from the University of Illinois. When you say teacher education and teacher effectiveness, Paul's name immediately comes to mind. He and his colleagues study the impact of teacher reform and preparation on outcomes for students with disabilities and other struggling learners. He is an amazing grant getter and an extremely productive scholar. Please join me in welcoming Paul Sindelar, whose talk is titled, Riding and Making Waves.
I wasn't smart enough to put this on paper, so I'm going to have to use my computer here for my notes. Aren't those technology moments awkward? I apologize. Let me say what a great honor it is to be here today, and I appreciate the invitation from Mary Elaine and the Planning Committee. It's a great honor to follow Brian in those remarkable comments of his dad. I'm very sorry that Jim isn't here, of course, in a number of ways, but I wanted to relay to him one of my most memorable moments as an assistant professor at Penn State University back in 1981, when Jim got an award. He was an alumnus of Penn State, and he was receiving the Distinguished Alumni Award. And my boss at the time, Phil Cartwright, said to me, "Would you host Jim Gallagher this weekend?" And it just meant I kind of shuttled him from event to event. And it was such a significant moment for me. I mean, it was awesome. Just such a cool thing for beginning assistant professor, a little wet behind the ears still, to have the chance to spend time with so notable a scholar in our field. And I wanted to see what he remembered of the event because it was from the other end of the telescope, looking down at me as a junior faculty member. Well, the title of my presentation is actually Making and Riding Waves. I chose that title because Jim and, of course, Sam Kirk, along with him, were wave makers in our field. They were the generation of pioneers who created, essentially from nothing, the discipline that I now have been employed in throughout my adult life, and many of us have, as a matter of fact. There are a bunch of them, Jim and Sam, Burton Blatt, I'm going to name a few names here, Nicholas Hobbs, Maynard Reynolds, who was at the University of Minnesota when I studied there in my PhD program, Bill Rhodes and Bill Morris at the University of Michigan, William Cruikshank, Marianne Frostick, Doug and Lynn mentioned Grace Fernald. I could go on and on. The point is there was a pioneer generation that made waves, and the rest of us, many of us in this room, have ridden the crest of that wave throughout our professional careers. When I first started, there was a sense of excitement and enthusiasm about special education, a real sense of high purpose. There was unlimited growth on the horizon. There was no problem we couldn't solve. there was widespread public support for the work we were doing, and in retrospect, what seemed like ample funding. Bob and Laura may feel like there wasn't ample funding. I really didn't know, but it seemed that way to me as I look back on it. Now, so that was then. Ooh. Oh, wait a second. Okay. I've got two little devices now. There we go. And today, I would argue, not so much. What I'm going to do today is to focus on the construct of specific learning disabilities, Sam's baby, and to look at it somewhat historically and its evolution, and take a very close look at the current status of this construct and what's happening in special education in the United States today. Then I'm going to present some data from work. I shouldn't do that at an event like this, should I? I'm sorry. But I'm going to bore you with a little bit of data later. And try to offer a couple of explanations about what may be happening to our field. And the question I think we need to address is, has special education jumped the shark? Does everybody know what that means, that particular phrase? I know you can't answer for everybody. Isn't that a terrible way to phrase the question? Does everybody know? How can you answer that? Well, what it means is, have we, after years and years of growth and success, has that positive trend turned? And are we now in a period of decline? And that's a question that I think we need to take very seriously for reasons I'll explain as we go along. Mickey mentioned that I was a master's student here, started in the fall of 1973. Bob and Laura were both on the faculty in those days. Sam was not. He had already left for Arizona. And the department was housed in, got to remember to move things along. In 1005 West Nevada. That's the building as it appears on Google Maps today. And I was housed, see those two little windows up there on top? That's where the graduate students were. And I had come to the University of Illinois from a job at the Illinois State Psychiatric Institute, 1601 West Taylor in Chicago. Still remember the address. Just getting over the experience recently, thanks to years of therapy. I worked there with disturbed and delinquent adolescents for a period of 3 years. And I will confess that what prompted me to return to graduate school was the fact that the temporary certificates I had elapsed. I was no longer qualified to teach in the state of Illinois. And I had to go back and get an actual teaching certificate. I was an alternative route teacher. It was easy to do in those days, particularly if you were willing to work in a setting like a psychiatric hospital. As I mentioned, Sam was gone, but he cast a long shadow. One of the very first classes I took here as a graduate student was taught by Ruby Phillips. You'll remember Ruby, I think, right? And the course was essentially organized around the ITPA, the Illinois Test of Psycholinguistic Abilities. And we were taught to administer the test, to score it and interpret the findings, and to develop remedial plans that then we would ultimately use on students. In a second course, we had a practicum experience where in the schools in Champaign, these poor kids must have been tested hundreds of times. And I actually drove over to Danville and tested a bunch of kids in Danville. So my task in that practicum was to test 10 kids, actual kids, to write up the findings of that assessment and to suggest an instructional plan. And the whole concept behind the ITPA was that we would assess these underlying psychological processes and remediate them. And once remediated, students who had difficulty learning would be able to learn readily. The next practicum I had, the next semester, was in Philo, Illinois, down south from here. And I was in a resource room with a woman by the name of Linda Jenkins, who at the time was Joe Jenkins' wife. Joe was a faculty member here at the University of Illinois at the time. And Linda's resource room took a completely different approach. And her focus was on teaching the skills that students lacked, as opposed to an underlying psychological process that may inhibit their learning. And so one semester I'm knee-deep in psychological assessment and very careful diagnostic prescriptive planning. And the next semester I've got flashcards and we're working on basic skills with kids trying to increase their fluency. And it was quite a dramatic contrast, as you could imagine. And of course, I was completely confused, didn't know quite what was going on. Well, I did want to show you this too. This is, I got this picture, and I saw it on one of the posters outside. Yeah, it's Sam, and it's not the ITPA that he's administering there. Oh, you're kidding me. How perfect. How did he do? You know, and the ITPA was a really interesting instrument. Tested different modalities, visual, motor, auditory, verbal modalities, different processes like reception and expression. And some of the tests were really kind of cool and kind of fun. It was fun to administer with the kids. But coming as I did out of a program where I worked with disturbed and delinquent adolescents, there was one little task on the verbal expression subtest, I think it was called, where you would ask kids to show me what you do with this thing. And so I'd hand the kid a hammer and say, show me what you do with a hammer. You can imagine my trepidation. I could not have done that months before when I was working with the delinquent kids. And so this divide that I first experienced in the differing kind of practicum experience I had as a student here turned out to be a fairly significant issue for the field as well, because several scholars, Hamlin Larson most notably among them, kind of took issue with the notion of psycholinguistic training and challenged the idea that these constructs that were measured on the ITPA were actually remediable. And they reviewed a series of studies, all the research that had been done to that point in time, and found that indeed most of the subtests or most of the skills tapped by the ITPA could not be remediated in any reliable fashion. Artur and Jenkins, and that is Joe Jenkins, somewhat later took on a larger construct of differential diagnosis and prescriptive teaching. It's the same model that Sam used with the ITPA, the idea being we would make very careful assessments of students and develop educational plans based on those assessments that would tap unique skills or scaffold around weaknesses so that students, by virtue of this differential diagnostic process, would have an instructional program that worked effectively for them. And of course, in their review of the literature, in review of educational research, Joe and Judy Artur, who was a student here at the University of Illinois at the time, also found little evidence to support the logic of that approach as well. At the same time, the field had suddenly a whole armory full of weapons. And they weren't so much based on a fine-grained analysis of children's needs as much as they were based on a technology approach, applied behavior analysis. At that time, we were teaching kids things we never thought we would be able to teach them. We were managing difficult and challenging behaviors that previously were impervious to influence. Process product research that linked teaching behaviors, kind of broadly writ, with student outcomes, so that we had ideas like the more opportunities a teacher provided for children to learn and to participate in class, the greater would be their achievement. The idea of questioning and feedback became important. The concept of academic learning time, all derived out of that process product research. And again, it wasn't based on fine-grained analysis of student need. It was based on research that showed that teachers could do things in classes that had an impact on what children learned. I think the ultimate pragmatic approach to special education was curriculum-based measurement, where the idea was we'll find a way to assess what students are learning, do so frequently enough so that if what we're doing is not working, we'll know that and we'll be able to change our approach in time to keep the kid on track. And so it really didn't matter whether you had done a careful assessment. You could try any instructional approach. You would know whether it's working on the targeted behaviors you were trying to strengthen, and if it wasn't, you would know it was time to modify your research or your approach. I think strategy training too also falls into this category, and it was being developed at roughly the same time. It's based somewhat on the concept that many kids with learning difficulties are poorly organized and lack other executive functions, but it's not really based on a careful assessment of individual students. So suddenly, we had this repertoire of approaches to working with kids that seemed remarkable and powerful. And we rode into battle with learning difficulties with these weapons in our hands and went to war. Somewhat successfully, I would argue, too. Those are still, I believe, part of what we know to be the effective approach to working with students with disabilities. But in the concept, or excuse me, in Public Law 94-142, which was the initial version of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the definition of learning disabilities did include this notion of an underlying psychological process deficit that was the cause of the learning difficulty. And I have the language up there on the screen. Specific learning disability was defined as a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or in using language, spoken or written, which may manifest itself in an imperfect ability to listen, speak, write, spell, or do mathematical calculations. So in spite of the fact that we by 1975 or so, had some concerns about the efficacy of psycholinguistic training, about differential diagnosis and prescriptive teaching, and aptitude by treatment interaction. That was another construct that was popular in the day. That idea survived and made it into law. And it was quite controversial. It's been quite controversial ever since. So identification, as SLD identification required not only a discrepancy between a child's learning capacity and their level of achievement, but it also required evidence that there was some kind of underlying psychological processing disorder. And of course, a good psychologist equipped with the multitude of tests that were available then and now, not always the most technically adequate of instruments, could easily find such an underlying process deficit. And you heard stories, I remember this from years ago, of psychologists testing and testing again, and then finally getting it. And I don't really mean to impugn anyone's professional practice. I think we were on this wave of optimism, and we wanted to help kids, and we thought we had the tools to do that. And by golly, we could get them help if we could meet the terms of this definition. And so I think it was part of that missionary zeal we were feeling at the time that really led to the identification of so many kids with specific learning disabilities. And in fact, over the course of time, the number of kids who are identified as having a specific learning disability burgeoned to the point, and it's still pretty close to true, that it's the most common disability, and among disabilities represents more than 50% of all students. But with that burgeoning number, I think we began to spend some of the capital we had accrued through the good work of the pioneering generation and Sam's work on this construct in particular. And there were other problems as well. The federal government had originally promised to pay for 40% of the excess cost of educating students with disabilities, and they never came anywhere near that. So funding special education has been an issue for us as long as there's been a law. In the most recent authorization of the IDEA, you're probably well aware of the fact that we no longer require the severe discrepancy for SLD identification. And of course, what this reauthorization, did was to allow states to adopt an RTI approach to identification of students, and it's kind of changed the character of this construct in special education altogether. But I should point out, Sam wasn't wrong. I think there's been recent research in the last decade or so, maybe 15 years, where we've gotten better at diagnosing the difficulties that children are experiencing and prescribing effective treatments. The most obvious example of this is the work on phonological awareness. Kids who lack certain skills, the ability to differentiate sounds in words or sounds in syllables, inability to rhyme, inability to blend sounds to produce a syllable or a word. Kids who lack those skills can be taught those skills, and then their reading performance improves dramatically, just as Sam had predicted. There's some work in mathematics as well that Doug and Lynn Fuchs, who were up on the screen a few minutes ago, and Don Compton at Vanderbilt have done on the psychological foundation for mathematics learning. That's very interesting as well, and they're finding some interactions with instructional approaches. So I want to move on a little bit to what's happening now. And the big thing that's happening now is that fewer and fewer students are being identified as having SLD. We may not have jumped the shark yet on special education, but it's pretty clear when it comes to SLD identification that we've gone from a period of growth to a period of decline. And this is a map of the United States. Oh, no, it's not. Wait a second. There it is. That it shows the change in number of students with specific learning disabilities in these 48 states. Didn't have room for Alaska and Hawaii. And the colors represent the relative growth or decline. Anything green or blue is growth, and you can see how uncommon growth is in the number of students with specific learning disabilities. And the green is from 0 to 10%. The yellow, the orange, and the red represent different degrees of decline. 10% in the yellow, 10 to 20 in the orange, and then a greater than 20% decline in the red. I have 5 minutes? Holy cow. So you can see virtually nationwide, there are many, many fewer students with disabilities, with specific learning disabilities being identified. As a result, fewer students with disabilities generally are being identified. This is a map of the United States using the same color scheme that shows the decline in the number of students with disabilities. And I have some information here on the state of Illinois as well. In Illinois, and this is from 2005 to 2010, I should have mentioned it, and the data I got are from ideadata.org. You're all familiar with the tables that are produced there. In the state of Illinois, there's been a 26% decrease compared to 17% nationally. I did want to show some data on other health impairments and autism. Those are the two growth industries in special education. Here in the state of Illinois, the increase in OHI has been 52% over that same time frame. In autism, it's been 150%. Overall, in the state of Illinois, it's been a 10% decrease. I put those up because Perry Zirkel has kind of argued that the decline in SLD can be explained by the growth in OHI and autism, and in some states, in fact, it can. State of California, where I'm doing work on the Cedar Center, it's a wash. They've lost as many students with SLD as they've gained in those other categories, but you can see nationally that that's not quite the case. Okay, there's a third element to this, and that is schools are employing fewer special education teachers. I don't mean to be discouraging to those of you who are preparing to be teachers out there, but it's a tougher job market today than it's been as long as I've been in the field. And I have a third map which shows changes in special education teacher employment. You can see there are some growth states, but there are some states that are employing today many, many fewer teachers than they employed a decade ago. My home state of Florida among them. And the state of Illinois has experienced roughly a 10% decline. Now, there is a silver lining to that cloud, and that is, as numbers of teachers have gone down, the percent of teachers who are considered highly qualified has gone up. In fact, the data I saw in the state of Illinois suggests every teacher in the state of Illinois is highly qualified now, or virtually every teacher. And I did want to mention, too, as a shout out to my home state, I grew up in Chicago, that at a meeting earlier this week, Melody Musgrove, who's the OSEP director, commented that in the state of Illinois, teachers enter the classroom ready to work with kids. And she was so complimentary about the work that's going on in this state with regard to teacher preparation. Okay, I wanted very quickly to put a happy face on all of these findings. And the happy face goes something like this. What these trends show is that we're reaping the fruits of successful innovation and widespread adoption of those innovations, early intervention being one of them, reading first being another, multi-tiered systems of support, positive behavioral intervention, and supports as well. And there is some reason to believe that this is the case. We did a study a couple of years ago and were able to get measures of reading first implementation within the state and what we found was that reading first implementation was positively associated or correlated with the decline in the number of teachers and the number of students with disabilities. I said positively, that threw a wrench into that whole statement. What I really meant was where reading first was implemented in a more widespread manner, there were fewer students identified as having specific learning disabilities, fewer teachers employed. And the same was true with states that had adopted policies that enabled schools to identify students through RTI as opposed to a discrepancy formula. Of course, there are other interpretations. I'm going to have to go through this quickly, and that is that the reduction in the number of students identified with SLD represents a tempering of our commitment to serving students with disabilities. And you see that in what's happening at OSEP. It's been a decade since they've put money out on the street to support preparation of teachers to work with students with high incidence disabilities. They lost their research authority. Their level of funding has not increased for decades. And so in constant dollars, the amount of money the federal government is investing in personnel preparation has declined. It may also be that, generally speaking, people are fed up with compliance. There's, as you know, politically strong resistance to federal intervention, and one of the problems special education has experienced has been the amount of paperwork that's involved. And let's face it, we haven't delivered. We never delivered on the 40% commitment to fund the excess costs of educating students with disabilities. We never provided a fully qualified workforce. Now it's getting close only because the economy has been so rotten and we can't afford to hire teachers. And we've never really delivered on efficacious treatments. We don't yet, although it's getting better, have a full repertoire of strategies for dealing with learning problems. Still lots of kids struggling in school. So, has special education jumped the shark? I don't know. It's my belief at this point we're still not able to answer this question. We don't know whether special education is trending up and that we're benefiting from innovations. But there is some reason to believe that reductions are at least in part the product of successful innovation. There's also some reason to believe that there's been a shift of public support away from special education and a shift of dollars from special education to general education. So I asked myself, what would Sam say? I didn't know Sam myself, and so I'm kind of trying to channel him as I look at these issues that we're dealing with today and try to get a sense of how he would interpret them. I think he would be heartened by the fact that his model, the idea that there are underlying psychological processes that support learning and can be remediated, seems to be reemerging in what we do in special education. I think he would be very unhappy about the tempering of our commitment to students with disabilities, if indeed that's what's happening. And he would be worried, as I am, and I would imagine we all are, about the struggling students who may not be getting a special education because we've lost our sense of direction and commitment. So again, thank you very much for allowing me to speak, and I feel honored and humbled to be able to participate in this event. Thank you.